I teach at Ashland Theological Seminary in their Detroit Center, outside of Detroit. My area of expertise is New Testament, although ever since I've been there, I've taught both Testaments, Hebrew Bible and New Testament. Oh, I'm from Columbus, Ohio. Born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. Not so big. Raised in a single-parent home. My mom had 4 children, and I was for a long time the youngest. And so I have 2 sisters and 1 brother, and they all still live in Columbus. Yes. My mother grew up in the Methodist Episcopal Church in Cleveland, Tennessee, and so she was Methodist Episcopal most of her life. When she moved to Ohio, a big part of her life, she became ill and couldn't really take us to church, and so we visited neighborhood churches, Presbyterian. Sometimes went to church with my grandmother, who was Baptist, and so, and then later became Seventh-day Adventist, and then I left the Seventh-day Adventist church, and now I'm AME. I think it was always there in my mother. You know, I see her as the paradigmatic, that model of what it means to be religious and a Christian for me. In different ways, the church has disappointed, right? But I can always felt I could look to my mother as that example of what love looks like, what being inclusive looks like, right? And so for me, she was always about helping someone else, right? Regardless of whether she had much or little, she was always about, being there for other people. My mother very valued education, although she went to 2 years. Well, let me say this, she had a better high school education than I did. Right? In the South, unfortunately segregated schools, but yet she had 2 years of Latin, 2 years of French in high school, right? Was valedictorian of her high school class. When I went to high school, there wasn't, even though I was a good student, there wasn't that much emphasis on necessarily getting the languages and all that kind of stuff, but my mother valued education. She had 2 years of college, pushed me to get a doctoral degree before I even could, think about what I would want to do with it. Although I'm the first in my family to get to finish a bachelor's degree, but my brother and sister, my older brother and sister, have since in their 50s and 40s finished their bachelor's degrees, and so the first to get graduate degrees. So first, I never wanted to go to college. I just wanted to get out and get a job, right? So I worked at Nationwide Insurance Company. I had excellent office skills, worked there for a few months, and I said, this is for the birds, and said, okay, I can do a 2 years degree because I won't be in school that long, and just kept going, and people kept asking me, when are you going to stop going to school, right? This is somebody who did not want to be in school this long, right? But I think when you have a purpose and you have a goal, you have to just keep going until you get there, right? I went to a 2-year school first, Columbus State in Columbus, Ohio. Then I went to an Adventist school to study theology, Columbia Union College in Tacoma Park, Maryland. Then I went to Ohio State for a master's in Black Studies, and then Howard University for my MDiv, and then ended up at Harvard for my PhD. I went from being, in a sense, a legal assistant and legal secretary to all the way up to, it was a long journey, but to being getting a doctoral degree and teaching in the academy. So I think they keep me humble because they just see me as Mitzi, right? And I get in sometimes little arguments over certain intellectual or political discussions we get into, but they just see me as Mitzi, right? I was the baby for a long time. But there are people, I think, sometimes who don't understand your journey, or they somehow think that you've changed in terms of your who you are at heart. I've heard people say, oh, okay, Mitzi went to school, so she doesn't really care anything about us anymore, right? Things like that, right? But that's not who I am. For me, that's more about them than it is about me. Right? My mother's faith was foundational and still foundational in terms of what it means to care about other people, right? And be actively involved in helping and assisting other people. I think what is different is they didn't have a faith that was critical, right? That you just accept things as they were given you and as it was told to you, right? Certain theological constructions. They didn't question, right? You just believed. But my faith has developed into more of a critical faith, right? For example, and as I say, I wrote was based on my reflecting on this verse I would hear all the time, and my mother and others would repeat it, that I have not seen the righteous forsaken or their seed begging for bread. But I would think about it, and there were times in our life where we did have to beg. Right? I'm like, my mother was a just person and a very hardworking person, right? She, at a point when I was about 10, lost the use of her legs, but she would walk. If she had to get to work, she would walk in the snow and ice from one end of Columbus to the other to get to a job, right? Looking back, I would question that verse. At first, she wouldn't question. I'm like, that did not represent our reality, right? And so we need to rethink how we talk about texts like that, right? Because that's one person's testimony. That's not every just person's testimony.